Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers Justin Fields surprises media with revelation about George Pickens. The Pittsburgh Steelers have two new men at the quarterback position. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields were acquired by the team in the offseason as part of a small retooling the team did. While there's questions about who will start for them, fans are nonetheless intrigued by this highly interesting quarterback battle this season. Both Fields and Wilson will have one of the best offensive weapons in their arsenal in George Pickens. The Steelers' wide receiver is one of the best young WRs in the league, with his ability to catch contested passes. As it turns out, Fields has some history with Pickens. The former Chicago Bear recalled a story about him and Pickens facing each other during high school. "I knew George before y'all knew George," Fields said. "I've known George since high school. He's always been the same. Just a freak athlete, crazy receiver. You can just throw it up there when nobody's open and he's most likely going to come down with it. He's the same player that I've known since high school." Fields will have a field day playing with Pickens if he eventually does get the start. The Steelers' star wide receiver made a living out of catching the most absurd passes from his quarterbacks. He is a great receiver that can help elevate a quarterback's play on account of his pass catching alone. Whether Fields starts in Week 1, though, is a completely different question. The common consensus right now is that Wilson is the Week 1 starter for the Steelers, which makes sense. Russ is the veteran, and he's proven himself to be a decent quarterback at the very least. Knowing how the Steelers operate, they would much rather get wins as soon as possible. It's not unreasonable to think that Fields will get a shot at starting at some point in the season, though. Russ is getting older, and he's shown signs of declining play over the last few years. Playing in a heavily controlled system such as the one Sean Payton drew up for Denver helped him a bit. However, under a, let's say, less proven offense led by Arthur Smith, Russ might crack for the Steelers. As for Fields, the jury is still out on whether he's a good quarterback that was misplaced or if he's terrible. His rushing game is excellent. The Bears excelled the most when they gave Fields a chance to run. He also is great at throwing deep balls to stretch the defense. There's positives, but the negatives are hard to ignore. His on-field processing is still terrible, leading to unnecessary sacks. It's an area that we knew was a problem, but it still continues to show today. His stint with the Steelers will be a chance to prove that he can thrive with a new coach teaching him. The argument many fans use to defend Fields is his admittedly terrible coaching and the revolving door of HCs and OCs around him. Now that he has a much better structure around him, will Fields thrive? Steelers blasted as Cameron Sutton breaks silence on domestic violence incident. The Pittsburgh Steelers signed cornerback Cameron Sutton for the veteran minimum. Like other veterans, including Russell Wilson, Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, Sutton is a low-risk, high-reward free agent. But Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio still didn't like the signing. Florio ripped the Steelers for acquiring Sutton just 2.5 months after he was a fugitive from the law. "I don't get what the Steelers are doing here. Other than saying, we had this guy for 6 years, we got him cheap. He's a starting corner, and we got him cheap. We'll just deal with this crap." "It's a lot of crap," Florio said on June 6. "It's a bad look for the Steelers that they gave this guy a second chance. As we always say, talent will get you that second chance. If this guy was a scrub, he'd never be back in the league." The Hillsborough County, Florida, Sheriff's Office issued a warrant for Sutton's arrest on suspicion of domestic violence on March 20. The same day, the Detroit News' Justin Rogers reported that the police made multiple attempts to contact Sutton but were unable to reach him. The Detroit Lions released Sutton a day later. He remained at large for 10 more days before turning himself into police. Sutton was charged with misdemeanor battery and then entered into a pretrial diversion program. The Steelers signed him to a 1-year deal on June 5. Sutton spent the first 6 seasons of his career in Pittsburgh. Florio also blasted Sutton himself for his first comments to the media upon his return to the team that drafted him. "It's an opinion-based world," Sutton told reporters on June 5, via SB Nation's Behind the Steel Curtain's Jarrett Bailey. "Everyone moves on the basis of not knowing, but feeling the presence or the space to speak. That's give or take, however it goes. My job is not to appeal to someone else. My job is to be the best version of myself, and how do I give that off to the masses or give it off to everyone around me? I'm in full control of that. I'm never worried about a narrative." Sutton continued to elaborate about what his message to fans is about his presence in the league following his domestic violence incident. Florio took major issue with Sutton's comments. But Florio may have had an even bigger problem with the fact that the Steelers cut those comments out of their YouTube version of Sutton's first 2024 OTA interview. The Steelers, and other NFL teams, often edit player interviews in non-press conference settings due to time restraints. But in this case, the only answer that appeared to be missing from Sutton's interview was the last question, to which he delivered this response. "I'm never worried about what necessarily people say because, obviously, more than likely, they don't know me more than anybody else. You know what I mean? And again, it gets back to just your foundation, your morals, who you are individually as a human being, and just what you stand on," Sutton said, via Bailey. "Holding my head high. Again, everybody goes through adversity. Everybody goes through things in their life that can change in both directions. So it's all about how you stand on that and what you do from that. And like I said, I'm ready to keep moving in the right direction. Everything else will keep falling in line, and we will just keep moving from there." Sutton also referenced the word adversity earlier to reporters on June 5. Florio took major exception to that word usage. He's almost characterizing himself as a victim. "We all go through adversity. Some adversity is set upon us," Florio said. "Some adversity we create by the things we do." Chris Sims responded to Florio by arguing that the Steelers could be playing the long game with Sutton. Due to his domestic violence incident, Sutton could face a 6-game suspension this season. But after his return, Sutton will return for the second half of the season. That is, if the NFL doesn't suspend Sutton for longer than 6 games. Florio suggested that's a possibility. Pittsburgh Steelers trade for Ceedee Lamb in shocking blockbuster proposal. The Pittsburgh Steelers pushed all the chips into the middle of the table at quarterback, signing veteran Russell Wilson and trading for Justin Fields this offseason, and could make a massive play at wide receiver to add a weapon for them. While it remains to be seen exactly how head coach Mike Tomlin and the Steelers will deploy their 2 new quarterbacks this fall, but have the resources to add a major weapon to their arsenal before the 2024 campaign kicks off. As Ceedee Lamb's contract talks with the Dallas Cowboys have stalled this offseason, the Pittsburgh Steelers could be an ideal fit to make a bold move for the playmaking wide receiver with 32 career touchdowns. It remains to be seen if the Cowboys will actually trade Lamb, arguably the most electrifying offensive playmaker on the roster, but the Steelers have the assets to make an offer compelling enough to make it a difficult decision. Bleacher Report's Brad Gagnon put together a list of cannot-refuse blockbuster trade proposals the Cowboys could consider for Lamb, including the Steelers sending a second-round pick and wide receiver George Pickens to Dallas in exchange for Lamb. Because Pickens is coming off a 1,000-yard sophomore season, Gagnon writes for BR, this would be slightly closer to a player-for-player deal, with Dallas saving money and gaining some draft capital and Pittsburgh doing everything in its power to get this right. This move makes quite a lot of sense, considering the Steelers are in better cap shape than the Cowboys. As Gagnon explains, the fact that Pickens is younger than Lamb, but more importantly still on his much more affordable rookie contract, could make this offer difficult to pass up. Trading Lamb to the Steelers would accomplish getting the star wide receiver out of the NFC, and Pickens would be a developmental yet proven receiver to continue building around. Pickens has caught 115 passes for 1,941 yards through his first 2 seasons with 9 touchdowns, despite wildly inconsistent quarterback play. If the Cowboys believe Pickens has significantly more upside from here, with Dak Prescott as his quarterback, this could be a blockbuster trade proposal to watch. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Ceedee Lamb? Leave your opinion in the comments.